So this is the second time I'm attempting to record this video. I forgot to record audio or test the audio before recording it the first time. So disaster is struck. But what this video is I'm going to be doing a few videos to rank the 25th to 50th best tournament players of all time on Triple Triad Advance. And I'm going to look through 4 groups of players. And our first group, in the hopes that my videos get a little shorter, because I think my videos are a little too long. So the first group is going to be winners that I haven't ranked yet. We're going to discuss all of them. That doesn't mean all of them will make the top 50. There might be some that don't quite make the cut because a lot of sweet players are going to not make the cut in this. The second group, I think, though I may change up stuff. The second group is going to be short-term kind of shooting star players, players that shined brightly but only played a little bit. And then the third group is going to be long-term players, but generally ones that started early or played the bulk of their career early in the site. So, someone like Jadot played a long time, but I think really starred in the early years, so he would be an example of someone that's going to be discussed there. And then the last group I'm going to do is going to be the later greats. So it might be someone like Amo, who really comes on very strong at the end, or even someone like Tezuka, who comes around in what I would call the early middle years, but continues playing tournaments up to the end. I thought he was a better fit in the second group, even though he overlaps a lot with the earlier group too. For a few reasons I'll probably get into when I get to him. So our first group is going to be winners. And yeah, so I think I've discussed all this, and let's look at our first group. So actually, let's look first at what are the stats I'm going to use, because I wanted to do a quick look at players. I'm going to talk a few things about each of them, but when I'm eventually looking to compare them, I'm going to look at your highest ELO rating. ELO is the system chess uses. It naturally adjusts for win percentage and for strength of opposition. Sometimes it is slow to reach the right rating, but one of the strengths of using a peak rating is the reason it's slow is because of small samples. But if you're winning a lot of games during a run of tournaments, you're going to get a decent sample in that run. Its biggest problem for Triple Triad is if you lose games in tournaments, you can only lose one at a time per tournament, so your rating will take a while to decline back down. But it does get up to higher ratings fairly quickly, so I think using people's highest peak rating will be a nice way of comparing them. Secondly, I'm going to use highest world rank. At the very start, I rank every player 2000, and then separation begins. But right, if you win the first tournament, if you're Kaus Debonair, you're going to be the top-rated player at the start because no one has an established high rating. Well, if you show up in 2008 and want to be the top-rated, you have to pass Seto and Dalial's ratings, which are very high. So as more ratings get established, it becomes harder to achieve a high world rank. We'll get to that in a sec, but just what was your highest world rank? And lastly, I made a very simple metric. I haven't used it before, but I thought it would be a nice way of kind of measuring the success of a career. The ELO rating, the world ranks, measures how good were you at your peak, at your best. But the achievement score kind of says, yeah, so what did you do total? What did you build throughout your time playing Triple Triad? So I gave 1,000 points for a championship, half of that 500 for a finals, half of that 250 for a semis, and half of that 125 for a quarterfinals, and everyone gets a score. This was kind of arbitrarily chosen. If someone wanted to argue that's a terrible system, finals should actually be 666, or a championship should be even more than that. Fine. I just wanted to put something together that seemed vaguely plausible and would give a quick look at total achievement. I would personally think it probably slightly underrates making quarter and semifinals, but I would totally understand someone who says it totally underrates winning championships. So a few reasons to trust or distrust these ratings, because I want you to know when a number that looks really good for a player, looks bad for a player, might not accurately state the case without just trusting me to get this right. So giving some information on how things work, ELO ratings tend to inflate over time, right? If you're the best at the very start, everyone's rated 2000, so you can only beat players rated 2000, and you will only get credit for beating 2000 rated players. But if the best players are rated 2200 and you start beating them, suddenly it's easier to gain points to get even higher rated. So over time, ratings inflate slightly. So if someone achieves the same rating as someone else achieves 4 years later, the first rating is definitely better. I don't know if it's a lot better or a little better. It's hard to say, but it is definitely better. And so if you see someone peaking at 2150 and someone peaking at 2175, and you think, but that 2150 guy played a lot earlier, maybe the 2150 is just better. Secondly, so that one is going to favor late players over early players, late players over mid players over early players. World rank is going to favor people either at the very start, because you don't have to overcome so many established ratings to be a high world rank early, and it's going to overrate people at the very end, because a lot of people went inactive, and so a bunch of people moved up the ranks simply by playing, a tournament, not having to perform well because suddenly the list of active players was much shorter. So this is one that ranks you highly if you are very early or very late. And I would give a ton of credit. Someone who was ranked number 9 in the world in 2010 might be more impressive than someone ranked number 5 or 6 in the world very early on or very late. So that's an adjustment to make there. Again, I don't have like an exact way to do this, but we'll try to do it by feel. And lastly, achievement score obviously credits players who played a long time, but it is supposed to. But its real bias is the fewer rounds there are, the easier it is to get an icon. Early on there are 7-round tournaments. So you'll see Dream Virus, when we get to him in a later video, only made 3 quarterfinals, but each of them were making it to round 5. And in later times, that could easily have been making a semis or a finals, and they're deep runs worth crediting. But because he had his achievement early, they were only quarterfinal finishes. And so this is biased against players like Dream Virus who played early. For a long time in the middle period, at the start, there were a bunch of 7-round tournaments. Then there became occasional 7-rounders and mostly 6-rounders. And that lasted for a long time. And then sometime around 2013-14, it really started dropping off. And there were 5-rounders, and even we'll talk about today, a 4-rounder. And so just thinking, if you won 4 rounds at the start, you had just made the quarterfinals. If you win 4 rounds at the end, you've won the tournament. So, winning the tournament is worth 1,000 points here. Quarterfinals is worth 125. That is a huge swing. I would really say achieving things early or in the middle period is worth clearly more here than having achieved things late. So those are what I think the biases are between these stats. Now, one thing interesting is I made this achievement score, this 1,500, 250, 125 system, and amazingly, every single player in my top 24 has at least a 1,500 score. And not a single player I've looked at outside of it scored a 1,500 score. And it's just kind of cool that I hadn't used this stat at all, but some kind of generic achievement method really lined up quite well with my rankings, even though my rankings had a lot more thought to them, and I like to think it's more than just this. But you'll notice if you look at these rankings, they look quite a lot like how my tiers end up looking. Doc Evil and Sujiro look a bit low here, but they both achieved what they did in a lot less time. This doesn't have an adjustment for how much time it took you to get there, right? So if Doc Evil gets to 2,500 in just 3 tournaments, that is insane, right? That is so much faster than anyone else is earning achievement points. And, Karmazin getting to 1,500 in just 2 tournaments is incredibly impressive. I will note I did not update this past vid's list of achievements, and or the one I saved. So Yojimbo, Delial, Slash of Time, Turds, Chickeny all gain points that this doesn't give them credit for. I would say if I added those points in, because those points are all at the end, they would be worth a bit less than they look like they're worth. But they'd still, all those players would move up, and deservedly so. The other thing I want to note here is I didn't include Dark Lord because I was too lazy to check his results and I didn't have them in the vid achievement list, but he would easily break 1,500, made at least a finals and a win, and that gets you to 1,500, and I think has another icon or 2. So Dark Lord would certainly make it. All 24 players I have ranked so far break 1,500. Not a single player who breaks 1,500 has not already been ranked. Every player now will be below 1,500. So speaks, my rankings are good, man. All right, let's get on to the actual thing. We have winners. Some are going to have lengthy resumes. Others are going to have short. It's going to be a little tricky to compare, but we're going to talk a little about each of them, and then I'm going to order the winners. And this doesn't mean they'll have made the top 50 or not made the top 50. Whoever I have as the best winners definitely will, but I'm not sure where the cutoff will be because we have a bunch of players to compare, but I will rank within the group before getting to the overall bigger rankings. So our first one's Acelaxi, or Acela the 11th. Not sure. Came after my time, not someone I know a lot about. Won the final site championship and has a second icon. And a lot of these one-time winners that are still left never earned a second icon. So Acelaxi already with a big achievement there. Beat Phipps, Borchardt, Kurgo, and Slash of Time. Those were the only 4 rounds he had. This was a 4-round tournament. Means gets to be the final site champion, but also beat Slash of Time, which is obviously enormous. But didn't have to win as many rounds as later players did. But sadly, can't speak much about Acela because I wasn't around for it. The championship run's pretty good. Then we have Bistay, Slayer of God. Bistay won Tifa, but more than that, was clearly a mainstay on all the previous incarnations of Triple Triad and only played briefly on Triple Triad Advance. But is 42nd all time in TT.com wins, which is the second highest of any player I'll be talking about in this top 50. 8th in TTX wins, also second highest of players here. The only player, the only one to beat Doc Evil in a tournament match in the Tifa finals. But the Tifa run is very strange and hard to judge. So beats Super Llama, edgy, Master of Disaster, then beats Kaus Debonair, but then loses in the quarterfinals to Lionheart, very strong player, and is then reinstated when Lionheart and I believe Swinukin, or Zanukin, something like that, they do not play their semifinal match. And thus, Bistay, as an active player who had reached the previous round and gone out to one of them, is reinstated out of that bracket to play in the finals and beats Doc Evil in the finals. So I think outside of Rhinoa, where obviously in the team format you could lose a match and have your teammate win, I believe is the only player to just lose a match and then win the title. So this is a very weird tournament to judge because they are literally the only time Doc Evil ever lost. And they're also like, arguably, this is one of the worst tournament wins because they lost on the way to winning. And overall, I think, as we'll talk about later, I'll kind of, not only will I rank these players, I will rank their tournament wins. I think this is a very impressive tournament win, but it is one of those ones you could really argue either way. So then we have Bran, and Bran never signed up for his tournament win. There was some inactivity. They needed a substitute. They were like, hey, Bran, you up for it? He was like, sure. He plays. He goes on to win the tournament. He also has 3 icons, which is tied for the most in this group. And he won them right in a row, which I think is really important to judging how good a player was at their best. Right? If I played 15 tournaments and I got an icon every 5 tournaments, clearly I'm playing pretty good, enough that I can get an icon occasionally, but there's no period of time where you'd be like, yeah, really strong player, really reliable player. And winning 3 icons in a row and then kind of not being as strong outside of it speaks to, in this period of success, really, really high level of play. Also had a bunch of clan success. Finished, I think, 9th in win percentage of anyone in clan tournaments in the records I have. Also won Clan League 4 with Triforce, which is not included in the records, but probably did well there. And Clan Wars 8, Paradigm Shift. On his run to win Triad Wars 3, beat Badusai, Azuma, Mafijosi, Takumi, Black Floss, and XCV. Don't know much about XCV, but obviously anyone who makes the finals is probably playing pretty damn well. Mafijosi is a huge win. And he was an Occult fan editor, one of maybe 8 or so to ever be editors, and edited I think a really nice edition of it, though I might just think that because I wrote one of my better articles for it. Then we have Demonic Avenger, a kind of strange player because he didn't stick around long and he was very fast, very quick player, really had clearly a quick feel for positions, made moves that clearly showed strong positional sense and often appeared a little riskier. The kind of move where you think, did they really calculate that out? Because it looks like there's a forcing line that might prove it wrong. But he might have just calculated it out really quickly and had a really good feel for that. Ended up becoming addicted to other games, and that drew him away from Triple Triad success, but had a great run here while he was here. Wins Rhinoa 5 and just takes down some incredible teams. So the first round, Random Hero and Poetic Justice, but then Konar and Scythe, really strong team. Fewer and Grat is strong. And then 2 just legendary teams in Yojimbo and Great Sephiroth, and then Nightwish and MC. And then he beat Slash in the finals. I do think Slash did more of the work along the way, and I don't have the individual game records, but I also know that Demonic won the finals, and at the time that I thought Demonic was clearly the better player. Slash went on to just keep getting better and just keep proving himself, and maybe Slash was already just amazing. He did go on to have an absurd year in 2009 this year, won as many tournament games in a year as anyone has ever won, while Demonic drifted off. But I know at the time I thought Demonic must have carried that team, and Demonic must have just done incredible things. And maybe it was Slash who did incredible things, but I suspect both of them played great. Um, so then we have Firebrand, early player, don't know anything about them. Beat Missio, Sia, Heartless, Dracula, Love and Peace, and Ulti. I bet I'm pronouncing Sia wrong. Wins the second sight championship. Does not take the title away from Broccoli. So sometimes these title runs, not quite the same way as Bistay, because you're not losing a match on the way to the tournament championship, but when someone loses the title run, that does hurt it a little for me, right? Because, it's like we had an extra round, and you did happen to lose that extra round, and other players have won that extra round. But a nice tournament win. Ulti is a strong opponent in the finals. I think that's very worthy finish there. Medis, I swear he won a tournament. I cannot find it. If someone knows which tournament he won, please tell me. He's in my head a tournament winner, and if he's a tournament winner, he actually breaks that 1500 score, and I really have to wonder where to place him. But I cannot find the win, and as is, I guess he doesn't even fall in the winner group, and we'll discuss him in a later group. But if he is a winner, then he's probably in that top group, and it becomes a top 25. Suikoden. I would like to complain about TTAC 5, which you can see the bracket of at the bottom of the screen. Because names are written up-down, when I'm looking through results and trying to search a player, and I use, search F, right? It will not correctly search them if they didn't make a round. Like, it will not show me where they are because they're not written in a way that it's going to notice when I type in their names. And this makes this a huge pain to steal, to grab the records from. And so I wish this tournament had never happened. But as is, Suikoden wins it. Beats Zero, Meta, Cypher, Shadwell, Tezuka, and Keith Atkinson. I think Shadwell, mostly known as a closed player, but was having a really good open run around now. Tezuka's obviously great. Keith Atkinson makes the finals. Meta's tough. This is a very solid run. Suikoden also has this great clan record, the 4th highest in clan events on record, slightly higher than me, and higher than, other great players, Seto, Yojimbo, Delial, lots of just superb players here that Suikoden is ahead of in clan results that I have records of. And he was on the TTX wins leaderboard. There were 2 Suikodens there. I know he's not the higher scoring one of them on TTX, but I suspect he is the other one. So I will give him credit for that too. Then we have Unfixable. He is the winner of the first SE, beats Sabin, Mysterious Ass, Falcon X, No Name 04, Mafi Josie. Really, we're going to see a bunch of people beating Mafi Josie, but also really creditable win. Really, really good win. Mafi Josie has a bunch of these losses to really good players and basically no losses to anyone else. So it's a win that really speaks to the class of a player. And then Soaps in the finals. He's also the second player to ever be ranked #1 on the site by ELO ratings. This is, again, helped by being early to the site. But he's the only player we're going to be talking about in the next bunch of videos that was ever ranked #1. And that's got to be worth something. And in the first player of the year vote, he was voted co-first player of the year in 2003 along with Grat. I don't have the records of early player of the year vote winners, but Grat in an interview was asked about it and said, well, it was really wonderful to be recognized for that, but I do think Unfixable was a lot more deserving. On the other hand, Grat was just very humble, nice guy, and perhaps did not take the credit he deserved at times. Then we got Virgil. Virgil came. He played a few tournaments, I think 4 total. He wins Triad Wars 4. He puts up clearly the highest percentage of players in this group. Triad Wars 4 is his only icon, but he did make round 3 or 4 in a bunch of other tournaments, and round 4 in early tournaments was not an icon, while in later tournaments it could be a semi-final or a final, right? Wins Triad Wars 4, has a 77% win rate, which is the highest of anyone in this group, clearly. Beats Seto in the finals, as well as beating Waltz and Meta. Really good run, and just goes, is this the best triple Triad's got? Guess I'm out. I do suspect, if you run it back, Seto was about to start winning everything, and I suspect Virgil over Seto is not, I think he won in 1 game. I suspect if you run it back, Seto probably wins more than he loses. I have a lot of faith in Seto against just about anyone. But fantastic run by Virgil, and just a really high win rate. So if we look at the best wins each of these has, we've kind of seen them already, but I think Acela did not look that impressive by what we've seen so far. But those three best wins are really good. I think Bistay's three best wins jump out, beat both Kaus and Doc Evil in that run in Tifa, but also has a win over Sujiro. Who else really stands out to me? I guess Virgil's run of Seto, Cookie, and Meta, and that's Cookie right and Cookie's prime. So those would be the three that jump out to me here, but of course everyone here is beating really good players. So how to rank them? If we just look at their title, I've kind of ranked the players in a bunch of categories. How impressive was their run to the title? I think Acela's just four-rounder has to be the least impressive. Suikoden and Firebrand each took out a few good opponents, but not like real standouts. Bran and Unfixable, I think we're getting into like this is a very solid tournament run. You beat Mafi Josie, you played a lot of rounds, you beat some other good players. And then Demonics, I think you could place a lot of different places reasonably. Like you could say this is clearly the best run, just the talent his team took out. But you could also say, I don't know how much he did of that and put him much lower, or you could just devalue Rhinoa. I wasn't sure where to put him. I thought this felt right to me, just given how much talent he took out, beating Slash in the finals. Which at the time I wouldn't have given as much credit to, but having seen what Slash did immediately after deserves a lot of credit. Then in second, I think Virgil's run. I think most people looking at it will put Virgil's run first. I think the Seto win, along with some other solid wins, is really valuable. But it's so cool that Bistay is the only person to beat Doc Evil. I know he lost in his run. It would be completely reasonable if you were to put him in last place. I should also mention Firebrand and Suikoden both lost their title matches. Firebrand to Broccoli and Suikoden to Kamikaze. So that downgrades their wins a little for me. So Unfixable and Bran, I think, are pretty clearly ahead of the bottom three. And you could move them up if you wanted, if you thought Bistay is overrated here or Demonic is. But that's how it looked to me. Highest world rank, again, Unfixable's first. This is really impressive, but it is largely because the site was so young. Bran jumps out at me here along with Virgil, both players who peaked more around 2006 when there were more established ratings. And the other thing that jumps out is Demonic looks really low, right? But this is because Rhinoas don't have individual results, so I couldn't use them for ratings. And if you look at the best ELO numbers, Demonic is way behind there as well. And this just understates his case. This is just, he played in tournaments I couldn't use for these ratings, and his performance in tournaments I could is okay. The average player is 2,000. It's a little above average, not much. But where he really shone was in tournaments I'm not giving full credit to here. So it looks like we should drop him off a lot. I think we shouldn't drop him off near as much as it looks, if at all. I do think for these players, the best ELO, having Virgil, Bran, and Unfixable as a top three with Bistay pretty close, I think is probably about right for peaks, though maybe Demonic should join that group. If we look at total achievement, 5 of these winners only won a tournament and have no other icons. So each of them earned 1,000. I have them listed alphabetically. And then Demonic has 3 icons with a semifinal, but he got a bunch of activity wins to that one, so maybe downgraded a little, a win and a quarter. But this is to say, the previous stats underrate Demonic a bit. Really good icon count. Bran also with 3 icons, Acelaxi with 2 icons, and then the others all with 1. And in the end, looking at this, I'm pretty sure Bran should come out on top. Really solid tournament run. His ranking of 4th in the world was at a time when, Kamikaze, Sujiro, Cookie, I think were the only 3 ahead of him. And there was a lot of competition like Jadat and, some of the other players here that he was ahead of. And I think the 2189 peak rating is pretty good. That was enough for me to put him ahead of Virgil, who achieves a slightly higher peak rating and a same world rank. And I think is a better title run, but just didn't stick around as long, doesn't have any other icons to go with it. I think Bran nudges out Virgil pretty clearly for the best in this group. Then Unfixable has the next highest rating. He's the only one to achieve a number 1 rating. I think his tournament run's really good. He came next for me. Bistay, hard to place because that one run is so weird because he does sort of the greatest thing in Triple Triad history in beating Doc Evil, but also loses the round before. In chess, no, let's not get distracted. But there is a player who won a world championship after losing the qualifying match, and it is one of the weirder events in chess. Then after that, I put Demonic. Wasn't sure where to put him, but I think overall, Suikoden and Firebrand not winning their title matches, not having that high peak ratings or peak ranks, Acela not having that high a peak rank, and also having such a short run to their title, I felt those had to come lower, and Demonic seemed a good kind of middle of this group to me. So that's my ranking of the group. I mean, I think all of these are great players. I don't, like, if you're last in this group, you're still a tournament winner. Everyone I talk about will be great. Not everyone will make the top 50 because there are lots of great players that just aren't going to make the top 50 because, Triple Triad had 100 advance at 100,000 plus people play. Not exactly the best 800, but the best talent tended to play tournaments. There are about 800 some people that played tournaments, and I'm picking 50 of them as the best performers. So it's the top, I guess, 16th. So that's the top 6% of a group that is in the top 1% of all people to play. This is a very esteemed group, and I do not mean disrespect to people I don't include or that I put low, and I'll really get into that in the next video. Next, we're going to talk about, the other people competing for the spots. I have a bunch more players that I'm going to consider. I'm going to try to do them in small segments. This video probably went a little long. I don't want to look at how long it went because I'll feel bad because I'm trying to make these short. But the next should be a bit shorter because they won't have as much introduction. And then at the end of this, I will decide who are my 25th to 50th ranked Triple Triad tournament players of all time. And I think that'll be fun, and then you can tell me I'm wrong, and that's fun too.